after having a 30-minute conversation with Kwesi, as I bring my producer Sam
Mhm.
Extraman, having a 5-minute-ish conversation with Kevin O'Connell, just shooting the breeze, talking about players we both play with, guys we both know. Got a chance to talk to Coach Rump, the D-line coach, who was with my roommate, Anthony Weaver. We were drafted together in 2002. He was with him with the Texans. And it was just funny, some of the stories. Like it, as I, and we talked about, he asked me, and I love this about Coach Rump, the D-line coach, to start there. His first thing was, man, how do you like what you're doing? Which is, I kind of told him, I do some shows for the Vikings. I work for Fox. I do a podcast. I do the Vikings fan line on after the post game for the Vikings. And he just kind of asks, like, how do you like doing that? Well, one, I like the freedom and flexibility, and I talked to him about. But the thing we hit on the most was former players. We both, he was a former player as well. He was at Alabama with one of my former teammates as well, Terry Jones. His dad, Terry Jones Sr., is the weight coach, so he was there at Alabama with him. And we both just talked about players being disconnected. You look at players getting in trouble off the field once they're done playing, guys, overdosing on alcohol, killing themselves, CTE, all the little things like that. And then you look at the guys, and not to say this is the only reason, but you look at guys like Jerome Bettis, Ryan Clark, Keyshawn Johnson, the list can go on, Marcus Spears, Dan Orlovsky. Not to say that's the only way to stay around, but I mean, you got to look at like Steve Smith, Michael Irvin, Warren Sapp, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Reggie Wayne. Reggie Wayne does not have to coach in the NFL, but he did. He went back. Why? Because you missed those conversations. And I can't wait to get Reggie on the show because Reggie made fun of me one time. Not made fun of me, but him and I forgot, Joseph Adai, I think, like made a joke in the lunchroom one day when they saw me coming in with the coaches. Like, oh man, like they were talking loud enough for us to all hear. We know what you're doing. Oh man, I don't know if I'd be the coach, man, when I'm done playing, man. I can't come back here, man. Blah, blah, And look at Reggie. He's back coaching. Why? Because when you leave football, it's a fraternity, but it's the only place in the locker room where no matter what's going on in your life, the locker room is going to be like neutral ground. I don't know if that's France or Canada. I always hear that joke, but it's neutral ground in the locker room. And so we talked about that. Then we talked about Kwesi walks up, and Kwesi was college classmates with one of my former teammates, Chisholm Oprah. And Chisholm is now a scout, but they both were at Princeton. Kwesi comes over, and that's the best one because he just stands there with us for 30 minutes, like just talking about hooping, talking about his fiance. We talked about Kirk Cousins. We talked about my top 10 tweet. They all saw it as well. And so I even like his take on that because I kind of, we talked about Shannon Sharp, blah, blah. But, Kwesi even he's like, man, yeah, you can argue he's a top 10 quarterback. Like, you definitely can. Like, he's like, everybody that because they were talking about my tweet, and I looked at it too. He's like, everybody that disagreed with you put Kirk in 13 or 12. What's the difference? And when I thought about it, I'm like, you're right. What's the difference in 9 and 13? Not a lot. It's not a huge, because my take, and I said it, because I'm like, look, man, we're being open and honest. I'm like, look, I don't put Kyler Murray ahead of Kirk Cousins. And they were all like, yeah, I can see that. Like, but it's the coach, it's the skill set, it's what you're gonna do with Kyler. Justin Fields, I saw some people try to joke and throw him in over Kirk. So when you look at that and you look at that conversation, like I'm excited about and I'll tell the Kevin O'Connell story later, but I'm excited about where this team is going just for the simple fact of that. He talked about analytics, we talked about NFTs. And his analytics, he said, you know what? Analytics are just like stats. Coaches use stats all the time to dictate who they're going to cover, who they're going to try to stop, what they're going to do on third down, X, Y, and Z. He said, that's analytics. They just don't call it that. He's like, everybody uses numbers. You just call it what you want. He's like, I went to Princeton, so people want to throw analytics in my face or say whatever. Not, and he didn't say it that way, but that's how I took it. They want to throw analytics out there, but no. He's like, I go with my gut too. Like, he's like, I go with the numbers, but everybody goes with the numbers. And then I have to make a decision based off my gut, what I think, and what I see fitting. And he said he watched, he had to catch up on film. He had to watch all the practice film and all the stuff and blah, blah, as a GM would do. And yeah, it was cool, man. So that was my takeaway, Sam. Like, and any other questions you want to ask Sam, go ahead. But yeah, that was like one of my early takeaways from just one day being over there.
Yeah, well, I want you to eventually tell me why Kevin O'Connell has a bad back. But as far as Kwesi goes, I love his new approach so far. Now, I don't know, how it plays out when decisions actually have to get made. I just know what he's told us about how he likes to make decisions,
Right.
in theory. But taking it all into account, the numbers, the eye test, the scouting, the analytics,
Mm-hmm.
and then putting it all into this big pot and kind of stirring it up, and then out pops sort of this final evaluation, if you will. Football has a heartbeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of different variables in it. Scheme is huge. Your previous team's win-loss record, can influence how things should get judged. The coaches that you have, the teammates that you have, like all of that should pour into evaluation. So when you're talking about draft, free agency, I'm really interested to start getting kind of a body of work to see how he approaches this stuff. And not only that, Ron, but to see how his pickups this year
Mm-hmm.
perform. How's Harrison Phillips going to do? How is Jordan Hicks going to do? Like, is he going to nail this first year of free agents? Remember, the Spielman Zimmer era started out in 2014, and I know Spielman had been here before, but when Zimmer got into the picture, they decided to go get Captain Munnerlyn, Linval Joseph, Terrence Newman. And every move just seemed to work out early on there. Their
Mm-hmm.
draft picks were good, their free agents were good, and somewhere along the line they kind of got off kilter. But can Kwesi come in here and make an immediate splash with some of these new acquisitions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I told him, I'm like, look, man, it feels different out here. Like the vibe, the way they warm up, the dynamic stretches of each position kind of doing their own thing. Like it was really cool to see like the detail put into this. And he said, man, the toughest thing for me right now is just being a general manager, which is a manager of people. He was like, the people management side of this is a lot more than you would think sometimes. But he said he loves it. The other thing too I took away, and Spice Adams said this: if Kirk Cousins didn't make the amount of money he made, which he's definitely not, number 2, number 3, number 4 anymore, but if he didn't make that money out the gate that he got, and if he didn't make, these second, third contracts, people wouldn't argue where Kirk Cousins should be. It's because of the money too that people just took this totally different turn on Kirk Cousins. Like, oh, is he really worth the money? And then you just automatically put him into a box of, well, if he doesn't do this, he's not good. He's not worth the money. And I think that's the negative mindset that people have with him. But getting to the Kevin O'Connell. So Kevin O'Connell comes out, 6'5", big, tall guy. And, I introduced myself to him because, again, this is the first time I'm meeting all these coaches and staff and everybody. And, we talk about players. We, Darius Butler on the show. We talked about Darius. He said he loves D Butt, blah, blah. We talked about Bart Scott, of course, guy I grew up with since I was 8. Me and Bart played Little League football together, which is even cool that me and Bart wore purple when we were 8. And then we wore purple when we were 21 with the Ravens. So it was cool to see. And I didn't know Bart was even getting picked up by the Ravens because he's a free agent. I didn't find out till literally all the draft picks get off their planes. Everybody flies in different times, but everybody has to be there by a certain time because they're like, look, the first shuttle will be here at 4:00. Everybody on the shuttle for the Ravens at 4:00. So we all get on there. I look back, Bart Scott's in the back of the bus, and so, but Bart Scott, for those who don't know Bart is what he is. Bart is super, like, he says the weirdest stuff sometimes. His analogies, and he and I are kind of the same. We both take these analogies from all over the place. We bring together. Maybe it's how we grew up. Maybe it's our upbringing. Who knows? But Bart's analogies are worse than mine. Bart's stories are a little bit more outlandish. Like Bart saying that players took Viagra to stay warm because of the blood flow. I'm like, Bart, I don't think anybody's taking Cialis or Viagra, but besides you for a football game, but whatever. Like Bart says that we are everybody and it's him. But Bart, basically, Kevin O'Connell had a herniated disc in his back and a hurt back because of Bart Scott. And I forgot the other player, but basically said in practice, he was the backup. So he had to do some of the scout stuff. They did like this twist. And Kevin said partly it's his fault. If he had kind of just stood still, maybe he wouldn't have got hit. But he tried to like maneuver out of the way of Bart and another guy. And Bart hit him high. The other guy hit him low and back just gave out. He said Bart's the reason for his back injury because Bart hit him in practice. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, you're not supposed to hit. I'm like, y'all were hitting back then? Like, I mean, I know quarterbacks. We weren't hitting our quarterbacks. He was like, no, it's one of those, like he's not supposed to hit me, but he hit me. And I'm like, yeah, that's Bart. Like Bart sometimes goes faster than his mind. And he probably was thinking like, okay, quarterback's going to stand there. I'm going to just run through. Kevin did say I shouldn't have moved because if you move and they're moving, their only option is to hit you and not hurt themselves. And so it's like, do I hurt myself or I hurt the backup quarterback? Let's hurt the backup quarterback. and they nailed Kevin O'Connell, and yeah, he hurt his back. But yeah, and so that was a quick conversation. He had to get out to practice. I wasn't gonna be that guy to hold the head coach up, but it was kind of cool just to meet him quick, talk to him. And then we're gonna have some stuff as the season goes, because just like with Zimmer, we'll be around in training camp and so on and so forth. And there are new staff, but yeah, it was just cool to see behind the scenes and some of the stuff. With the coaches, how they interact. Like what is it, Minuski, Bill Minuski, former player.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Is he linebackers?
yeah,
Outside
linebackers play with Pete Bursis. This dude had his gym shoes, his tennis shoes, spatted up. That's how you know he's crazy. Like, he's a former linebacker, so they're already crazy. This dude had the hoodie. I mean, he was doing a little workout too, but he had the hoodie on, fully spatted his gym shoes. Like, took some Jordans and spatted them up for practice. I don't know why. You're not running full speed. It's just what he wanted to do today. Like, he just mentally, I'm a spat up. Like, I don't know why. I'm a spat up. Like, it was cool. It was just cool to see the personalities coming out. Of course, Keenan McCardell comes out like he's cooler than the other side of the pillow. Got the, the 1985 fro going. And, it's just, it's fun to see the vibe. You could just tell it's a little bit different, guys. And of course, there's no pads, no hitting. So training camp, we'll really get to see that vibe. Like, are these dudes still excited? Or are you like, oh, here we go again. We're back at training camp, 2-a-days, whatever. But no, it was just fun to meet like new blood. Like, all these coaches came over, and they're all playing basketball together because they're a younger staff. Ed Donatel's son, I heard, is a baller, lefty. So, I told them they play. So they were like, hey man, if you ever want to come play, let us know. I don't know if I'm driving to Egan to hoop, but maybe one day I might do it just for the experience, to go over there and show them I got it. But yeah, no, it was a fun day just to be on the inside. And I left my phone in my pocket, no recording, no nothing. I wasn't trying to be a reporter. That was the hard thing about meeting Kwesi, not being a media member in that point, and wanting to get some juicy nuggets from him, or just have a conversation about his fiance and, moving to Minnesota, and, dating her through the pandemic and all that stuff. Like, we were just having normal guy to guy conversations of former players and everything, that, guys that knew each other. And it was just cool to see him, in that setting, a GM out there wearing joggers and a hoodie and a vest. It's like, man, this dude is like he's just a regular dude.